All right, good morning. Welcome to the Eclipse Trading Series webinar. My name is Jake Apke. I am the trading training consultant here at Orion. Today's session is creating security sets and building models. So we will be looking at the entire process of building out models, security sets, and talking through them. So today is session 3 of the Eclipse series. There are a total of 6 sessions. So if today is the first session you are joining, feel free to go out to the orion.com/events page and you can watch the previous 2 sessions and get signed up for the next sessions in the series. Couple of things before we get started to go over. So the first one is feel free to ask questions. So we will have about 10 minutes or so at the end of the webinar that I will go through and answer as many questions as I can that you have submitted. So feel free to send them in throughout the webinar as any questions come up. Any that we are not able to get to, we will send some follow-up in a case as well. So don't think if you have a question that we only have a limited amount of time, we will certainly get to any and all questions that you guys may have. Again, I mentioned before the orion.com/events page. So you can go there to watch any of the prior webinars. You can also access this webinar sometime later today or tomorrow at the latest. Will be available as well for rewatch. Otherwise, there are other resources there as well for any other webinars that you might be interested in viewing on the Orion side, as well as a lot of other content, good resources, and information to get you help in Orion or Eclipse. Speaking of help with Eclipse, so Eclipse University, our next one that we have a registration open for is May 12th in Omaha, Nebraska. So this webinar series is really meant to be somewhat of a new user experience, a very basic walkthrough of just the Eclipse system, showing you different areas of the system, how you might interact with them. The Eclipse University is meant to be more of a deep dive in certain areas of the system, a little bit more situational experiences, workflows, processes. There's also the availability to meet one-on-one with some of our subject matter experts to get a training consultation. So if you have specific questions that you can go and get answered, or an area of Eclipse that you just really need that one-on-one time with. Um, the other real value comes from the ability to ask questions. As I said, these webinars are meant to be somewhat basic, so it's just meant to be presenting a lot of information. Anyone who knows Eclipse at all or understands, it can be very situationally dependent. A lot of questions or answers or how you use the system is specific to your firm or how you might want to set it up. So the Eclipse University is a great opportunity to ask questions throughout the presentations, throughout the training. That way we can really guide information directly to you. So if you have any other questions about it, feel free to reach out. We can talk to you about it. But that is the plug here for Eclipse U coming up here in just a couple of months. Okay, so today, as I said, security sets and models. Those are the big things we are going to be covering in Eclipse, and then as well as talking through restricted plans, a little bit what they are, when you would use them, and then also going over some new integration we have with Pontera as far as how you would use those plans and when they might make sense. Okay, so this is a very basic, simple model just to kind of introduce the concept. I don't think that there's a lot of scenarios where you may be only targeting Google in a model, but it's to go through just a concept so we can explain a little bit about some of the terms we are using, what they are. So security sets really are the building blocks of your models. They determine what your individual allocation is going to be, so what you're going to invest in and how much you're going to invest. And then models really define your overall strategy and how those security sets fit together. So this is an example of what we would refer to as a simple model. So it really only has one security set. It doesn't have any sort of other than the name of the security set being large growth. It doesn't have any sort of asset information or allocation, classification information really built in here. All it's telling me is that it's a growth model. When we look at a model as well, that's a little bit more complicated. So we refer to these as either multi-level models or complex models. So the idea being that they have the splits at the top and different sections to define different areas. So you can see the very top node where it says growth 70/30. We refer to that as either the parent node. Um, the word node essentially is any circle you see here on the screen. We'd call those nodes in your model. So that very top node could be, excuse me, node could be called the model node, could be called the parent node. And then the idea here is that all of this information, this classification information, really matches what you have set up in products and prices. So I would say most advisors are set up to where their products and prices information is getting streamed in or integrated with Morningstar so that all of your information, your classification on your securities is what's determined by them. But you could also customize anything in Orion that you want. But all of that idea is built into how you would set up the model. So you would have category nodes where you're starting with the most basic breakdown, equity, fixed income classes. This is a good demonstration of, in the real world, most scenarios, you're not going to have a class that is going to be this sort of information. You're going to obviously have a class that is probably going to be security specific information. But the idea being, in your model, you can create those classes to be whatever you want. So the model doesn't always have to necessarily follow whatever your product and pricing classification system is. You can use some customization a little bit if it helps you to understand what's in the model and what you can see. And then subclasses, and then your security sets. So I've used a few of the terms already. Node is the one that I wanted to highlight that we don't necessarily have definition for, but submodels are also another word that you will hear to describe one of these individual sections. So this could be my equity submodel when I just meet the specific node, but submodels also can refer to the structure that is underneath of it. So my equity submodel also could be this equity node and all of the information down below it. When we refer to levels, that's the information that corresponds at the asset classification um, breakdown. So your category, class, subclass, and of course, security set. Branches are really more so the vertical. So similar to the submodel concept, I have my equity branch, I have my fixed income branch. Within that, my domestic branch, my foreign branch. And then buckets is more of a generic term. Again, we would more so typically, you're going to call all of these security sets, but really you might talk about it, or that's more of maybe an industry term of, or a common term that you might think of for how you group all of that together is with your buckets. So the next thing that we are going to look at here is going to be bringing up Eclipse. So give me just a moment. Share my other screen. All right, here we go. Eclipse right here. So all right, starting off, I want to talk through over here on the left-hand side. You're going to see on your menu bar down under strategies is the main area we're going to focus on today. So we're going to talk about models and security sets pretty much most of the time, but I want to go through just the other sections that are here that correspond to models themselves. So one of them is the sleeve areas. So we are going to talk about sleeves a little bit today, mostly in how they correlate to differences with how you can set up your model, but also because there are a lot of I don't know if it's necessarily other companies, but a lot of the industry uses the term sleeve to mean something a little bit different than we do. And it is specific to model building. So when we talk about sleeves in Orion, we are talking about the process of taking one account at the custodian and breaking it up into sub accounts in Orion. So the biggest idea there is traditionally, one account can only have one model assigned to it. If you were to break it into sub accounts in Orion, each of those sub accounts or those sleeve accounts can all have their own model assigned. So the idea with sleeving, the main use case or the main reason most firms use it is it gives you the ability to run multiple strategies within an account.